My name's Chris and I'm from Planet Sub in Austin, Texas. Today we're going to be teaching you how to make one batch of gluten-free bread by Bonadia. The most important thing you need to remember is when it comes to making gluten-free bread, there are individuals who have an extreme allergy to gluten byproducts. So please make sure that your work area is completely sanitized and wipe-free of any gluten-free byproduct and we'll be good to go. Alright, so step one, you're going to want to grab one of our Cambros, and this is just a simple ingredient bin that we use in our make or wrap tables. And it works really well to contain our yeast, sugar, and water. What we want to do is start with this because you need to allow all those ingredients to activate, and we need to get what you're going to see as a froth, and that's going to help the gluten-free bread rise properly. So I've already put 7 tablespoons of just the normal house sugar into here, and now we're going to put 7 teaspoons of our yeast in there. And those are the 2 ingredients that really activate to help the rise. Also keep in mind when working with gluten-free bread, especially here at Planet Sub, we're used to seeing our bread rise very full in the proofer and then going into the oven. The gluten-free bread is going to rise quite differently. We're going to be able to see a good example of that as we work, but don't expect it to be as tall as the normal house bread that we have. The next ingredient you're going to be placing in the Cambro is 3 cups of water. I've already put 2 cups in here, and here's the 3rd one. And I usually just grab a fork or any sort of whisk item that's going to help really mix this up. You want to give it a nice vigorous stir so that way all the sugar can disintegrate into the water along with the yeast. And after we get this nice and whipped up, we're going to set it aside, and you're going to notice that it's going to start to kind of rise on its own inside here. It's kind of like a pre-rise before we mix it with the flour. And that should be good. Chunks are normal, so don't expect those all to disappear. It's all going to rise and just kind of disappear on its own. So our next step while we're waiting for that to rise is we're going to go ahead and use one of our big mixing bowls. And I find that most stores have a big mixing bowl and a small mixing bowl. I like the bigger mixing bowl because you really have to get in with your arm and the spatula to get it properly mixed. And the more bowl you have, the easier it is to do. But we're going to start with 6 cups of flour. Now we want to add our vinegar and our oil. And this is just your normal red wine vinegar that we use on our superheroes as well as the normal oil. Some of us are using canola oil and some are using vegetable oil. Both will be fine. You're going to do 2 tablespoons of the red wine vinegar. And then we're going to do 8 tablespoons of just the normal oil. The next ingredient is going to be 6 eggs. And we don't have to worry about separating the egg whites and the yolk. We just go ahead and drop all 6 eggs as it is in there. Okay, there we go. Next step, wash hands. So we're ready. And this is kind of the same concept as anything with yeast. It inflates, it can deflate by hitting it. If you deflate your Cambro with the sugar yeast mixture, it's really not going to be too bad of a thing. The important thing is to get that froth at least developed at one point. And now that it's in the bowl, just go ahead and begin your mixing process. The flour is going to want to shoot up to the side of the bowl and stick to it, so make sure you get your spatula up there every now and then to get it off the sides of the bowl. And I like to give it just a gentle turn, which kind of helps get the flour mixed in a little bit more. And once all these yolks get broken up, you can continue to do just kind of a circular method, and I kind of like to use a figure 8. And you'll notice that we're going to start seeing a little bit of I guess we could call it chunks in this flour, or in this mixture. And you pretty much want to start just really whipping at it until those chunks are almost completely gone. We've got some nice smooth batter that is now ready to go into our mold. Anyway, this is kind of a tricky method and it will take a little bit of a skilled hand or practice, but you'll get it. There's not really a super accurate measurement to getting it into the molds, but I find that if you use your spatula and do 3 scoops per loaf, you're pretty evenly going to distribute your batter amongst this mold. And that's just step 1. One thing that I forgot to mention is really important is you want to take the pan spray and spray down the mold really well, or else it is, even though it's silicone, it's still going to stick. When it comes to spreading out the mixture, this is very important, and because you have these gaps between your 3 plops that you put into the mold, and all you do is kind of push the spatula back and forth gently. But you want to make sure that you're not just lightly touching the surface. You want to make sure you're pushing down into the batter so that way it's really filling in the entire mold. And at the same time, your spatula is really helping the batter stay nice and smooth. All right, one more step and then we're ready to throw it in the proofer for 20 minutes. So you want to make sure that you tear off your parchment paper on both sides so that way the fan can't ruin your nice, lovely gluten-free bread. And when it comes to your bread, it is okay to put your gluten-free bread in the proofer with your house bread. There isn't a chance of cross-contamination there. Just make sure that it is usually towards the top so that way any flour that's residing on the bottom of another tray doesn't fall on top of your bread. Your proofing time is going to be in between 15 and 20 minutes. You'll just have to kind of see once you get to that rise level, that's an appropriate time to put it in the oven. Same story for your ovens. If you have a really strong fan, you're going to be probably around more 25 minutes baking time. If your fan's not so powerful, it's probably going to be about 30 minutes worth of time. Also keep in mind, just like our house bread, this is pretty much a big balloon. So when you pull it out, you got to be really careful not to bang it on anything or else it's going to deflate and you kind of have to start over. You're going to have not very good bread. You can just make sure you slide it in real gently. Don't shove it all the way to the back and bang it. And however you set your timer, we're a store that has to do it for 30 minutes. And there you go. And 30 minutes later, we're going to have some nice bread. Timer just went off, and now we have our finished products. You want to make sure that you're always aware that you haven't been handling the normal house bread and then you're going to go right away and touch the gluten-free bread. Anytime one of our guests orders a gluten-free bun, you have to change your gloves. And also the trays that we cook our subs on in the oven, you always want to make sure you have a small stack that's sanitized and clean set aside specifically for gluten-free subs. But if you have a sealable container, this works and this is nice and quick. As soon as it shows up on your screen, you can just pop this open, grab that, grab your tray, and you're good to go. Another popular method is the cellophane. Just be aware that sometimes with the gloves, it gets kind of hard to pull apart the cellophane and get it open. Once you have clean gloves and you know your gluten-free product is about to come out, you want to make sure that you grab a foil that hasn't come down from the shelf yet and had anything to do with normal bread. And you want to make sure it's a nice clean foil. At our location, we only use bottles for condiments, so you don't really have to worry about a cross-contamination there, but we still do hand spread our guacamole. So if it comes to an instance like a green turkey or a sub that wants guacamole, you want to make sure that you can grab like a secondary spatula, or if you just want to have a spoon or something on the side that's just specifically gluten-free for spreading, that's ideal. And other than that, I'd recommend that you have all your gluten-free bread pre-cut before serving, because that's another thing that's going to cut into your time is if you have to have a sterile knife to cut all your gluten-free bread. And all Planet subs that are going to be serving gluten-free bread, you will be receiving some nice fancy gluten-free stickers. And it's real important that we make sure we label this, not only for our guests to know that they're eating a gluten-free product, it also helps us from getting confused which sandwich is actually the gluten-free one. So as soon as you wrap it up, make sure you label it, and you're good to go.